Joined here by the head of the Colorado Petroleum Council, Tracee Bentley. Thank you so much for your time. So Democrats in the state legislature, they're fast-tracking this oil and gas reform, and they're saying they want to give local communities more control. They want to put health, safety, and the environment first. Are those not bad goals?
Those are not bad goals, and we wouldn't necessarily disagree with them. Our main issue, Kyle, is the process or lack thereof by which this has been handled. There are significant issues in this bill, all of which need thorough debate and at least discussion, and perhaps some compromise is needed, but we didn't get that opportunity. A couple of meetings we would suggest are not a thorough stakeholder discussion, and we didn't see the bill before it was dropped.
And they would say that industry should not be writing legislation to regulate itself.
Right, and we would suggest that that's correct, but we certainly should have an influence or at least be able to see the legislation before it's dropped. And by the way, I'm not just advocating this for the oil and gas industry. Historically in this state, when we've rewritten oil and gas law, there are so many stakeholders that need to be brought in. Landowners, farmers and ranchers, developers, home builders, local governments, none of which were at the table for crafting this bill.
Back in November, Coloradans overwhelmingly rejected what you guys described as essentially a de facto ban on new energy development in the state. But yet, they elected Democrats who were very enthusiastic about regulating the industry. You had to know this was coming.
We absolutely knew that we were going to see some new rules and regs come down the pike, and we were prepared for it. And we started having discussions with Governor Polis and the new legislators very early on in November. So yeah, we've been prepared for these discussions.
You get the sense from Democrats that not only are they enthusiastic about doing this, but they feel like it has been a long time coming. Do you feel like there is animosity in this process beyond just rulemaking?
We do. We feel like there's maybe some pent-up frustration. When I hear some of the folks say that, you know, this is the first major overhaul of oil and gas legislation in 60 years, that is quite simply false. We've been implementing new rules and regs in Colorado for oil and gas. We have put 16 new regulations on since 2008, most of them under Governor Hickenlooper. So I saw firsthand that every year we pass a new rule or two, a significant rule when it comes to oil and gas.
In fact, former Governor Hickenlooper talks about that in his presidential announcement today. So I understand that you don't like the legislation. What can you practically do to stop or change it?
Sure. We would like to slow it down and walk through and figure out if there's areas to compromise so that the bill won't be so economically devastating and give a lot of more voices to the process. So we're just asking, our first ask is for time to see and sit down if there's a way to come together and make this a better bill.
Have you heard from the governor on this? Have you gone to the governor on this? He certainly has been no friend of your industry, but you guys have had communication.
Yeah, we actually have had really good communication. And since the bill dropped at 4:30 on Friday night, we have not had communication with the governor's office to this point.
Have you attempted to get in touch with him? Are you trying to talk to him?
We have. We've got several folks put messages in saying, hey, can we slow this down? Can we all sit down, get around a table, and really figure this out?
One option that is open to you and your allies in the legislature is if this gets pushed through and you don't like it, you could gather signatures and you could put it on the ballot, where you just won last year. Would you consider doing that?
Sure. We're hoping that it doesn't get to that point, but we have to consider all options should this bill pass as is, because it's that devastating.
So taking it to the ballot would be one option?
I think it's something that we would consider if we needed to.
Okay. So I think we're used to hearing from a number of different industries facing increased regulation, these skies falling scenarios. Walk me through specifically what you think the implementation of these new rules and regs would mean in Colorado.
Sure. So probably, besides the process or lack thereof, probably one of the most problematic pieces of the bill is it says that before any existing or new oil and gas permits would be issued by the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, at least six new rulemakings would have to be completed and implemented. And for those folks who have watched the Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, one rulemaking can take and has taken up to a year from start to finish because of the level of technicality and all the resources that need to go into creating a rulemaking. So if there's a mandate that we have to implement at least six of those before a new permit can be issued, you can see very quickly how permitting could possibly come to a screeching halt. And therefore, it could be several years possibly before oil and gas would see another permit.
Do you think that that is intentional sleight of hand to put a de facto moratorium in there, or do you think that's legislators who just simply don't know what they're doing?
I choose to believe the second, although we have some keep it in the ground folks who are saying that that's intentional and that's what they wanted to see in the bill. They're very public about it. So we're choosing to believe that it wasn't intentional, and that's why we're asking to let's slow down and see if we can't get some more rules in place that won't completely halt permitting.
Aaron Martinez is speaking with my colleague Marshall Zellinger today, talking about the Firestone explosion and so on and so forth. Have you seen anything in these proposed regulations that you think would have impacted what happened there in Firestone?
I have not. I understand that that the overall message, one of the message that's coming out of the bill sponsors is health and safety, but I have to tell you, I don't see anything in this bill that would have prevented an accident such as that.
So then, lastly, people will see that incident, and obviously the bill sponsors have brought it to the fore. Mm-hmm. And you can understand where somebody says, you know what, if we have any kind of a situation that is putting public safety in jeopardy, then shutting everything down. It reminds me when President Trump said we're going to impose the travel ban until we figure out what the hell is going on. Why not impose a moratorium until we figure out where we need to be on health and safety? Why is that an unwise path if that's how somebody feels?
Sure. Well, the oil and natural gas industry is a $32 billion contributor to Colorado's economy. And if we put a moratorium on this industry for an extended length of time, you can see economically how we're going to suffer. Almost $300 million a year goes to schools that depend on that revenue, as well as first responders, health, transportation, and as well as directly to the state to fund important water projects and many other things. So I don't think it would be economically wise to put a moratorium on an industry that contributes so much, along with 232,000 jobs.
So if we could go back to the practical implications of this just to kind of wrap up. If we give local communities additional control, Weld County is not about to shut down the store. You could see how, in Boulder County, some areas closer maybe to the metro area, some communities might take a heavier hand. What then would truly be the economic impact of these regulations? I remember when we looked at what was on the November ballot, you guys were very exact in terms of here's what this is going to mean and where and how much. Do you have those calculations yet?
We're working on it as we speak. Since we just saw the bill for the first time Friday night, we're working on the exact numbers. We know it's going to be significant, but we hope to have those very soon.
All right. Tracee Bentley, you are leaving for a new job down in Texas in the same industry here, end of the week?
Yes, Friday is my last day on the job here in Colorado.
All right. Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation here for years, and best of luck.
Thanks for having me.